I made 8 plant milks at home. Here are the results with recipes, and I'll taste test all of the milks at the end and give the price per quart of milk. I decided to show all of the milks in alphabetical order, so we are starting with almond milk. I'm using 1 cup of raw almonds that have been soaked overnight. I then drained and rinsed the almonds. They go into the blender with 4 cups of water. I'm using 4 cups of water for all of the recipes today, which will make a quart of milk in most cases. The mixture blends for a couple of minutes, and this milk will need to be strained. I'm using a milk bag, but several layers of cheesecloth also work. I've heard of some people using an old clean t-shirt. You could even try a fine mesh strainer. For the almond milk, you can put a lot of pressure on the bag to release as much milk as possible. I wanted to sweeten my almond milk, so I added 2 tablespoons of maple syrup and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. All of these recipes will be available in the description box below. The next recipe is cashew milk. I'm using 1 cup of raw cashews that have been soaked overnight. But let's be real for a second. We're all so busy that it's hard to remember to soak things overnight. I think in all of these cases, it's okay to soak the main ingredient in boiling water for 4 to 6 hours. Again, I'm using 4 cups of water and blending for a couple of minutes. I did not strain the liquid because most of the cashews should be pulverized into the milk. However, I'll say that there were still some very small pieces, so if you're sensitive to textures, you might want to strain this mixture. Coconut milk is the next on the list. I'm using raw shredded coconut. Be careful not to choose ones with added sugars. I add the 4 cups of water and blend for a couple of minutes. As I strained the coconut milk, I couldn't help but notice how thin the liquid appeared. I decided to put the mixture back into the blender for a couple of minutes, but I honestly don't think that the coconut milk got any thicker. Stay tuned for my taste test of all of these milks, along with the final cost for each quart. Our next milk is hemp milk. I'm using hemp hearts, which are expensive. And this milk will end up being the most expensive on the list. I have read that lots of people do not strain their hemp milk, but that's a bit weird for me. It does still have hemp pieces, and I prefer it strained. Next is the ever-popular oat milk. I'm using rolled oats. And I'm using ice water this time. House-made oat milk can easily become slimy and weird, so I'm doing my best to keep the temperature of the oats down to prevent sliminess. I did decide to flavor the oat milk, so I added 2 chopped dates, vanilla extract, and a pinch of salt. This will only blend for 30 seconds top. So we're using ice water, blending for 30 seconds only, and just making sure that you shake the milk before drinking it after it's been refrigerated. This will help prevent it from becoming slimy. Oat milk also gets strained, but we aren't going to deeply squeeze the milk bag like we do with the other milks. For whatever science-y reason, squeezing the milk bag contributes to the possible slimy factor of oat milk. Rice milk is the next plant milk on the list. If you're an older vegan like I am, you might remember rice milk being the only plant milk available about 20 years ago. Things have definitely changed for the better. Anyways, this rice was soaked in almost boiling water overnight or for at least 4 hours. I drained the water and rinsed the rice. It goes into the blender with 4 cups of water. It blends for about 2 minutes, like most of the plant milks in this video. You want to strain this one because all of the rice will not blend up. Give this one a real good squeeze to get all of the milk out of the bag. The next milk is the ever-popular soy milk. The dried soybeans have been soaked in water overnight or for at least 4 hours in boiling water. They go into a blender with 4 cups of water. Blend really well for about 2 minutes. This milk must then be cooked. It is imperative that milks made out of dry beans be cooked before consuming. Drinking this uncooked could result in a major health issue. So I'm bringing this to a boil and then lowering to a simmer. I simmered it for 20 minutes. Remove any foam that rises to the top of the mixture. In a perfect world, this will come to room temperature before straining, but I was not patient. So in perfect Lala form, I attempted to squeeze the bag while it was still very hot. Yeah, that didn't work at all. So I had to let it cool until I was able to handle the temperature, and then squeeze it until all of the liquid was removed. The last milk on the list is walnut milk. I used about 1 cup of raw walnuts and soaked them for several hours. The liquid was drained and the walnuts were rinsed. Into the blender it goes with 4 cups of water. I blended for just over 1 minute and then the mixture was strained. While I do have a high-powered blender, my understanding is that most of these milk recipes can be made with a standard kitchen blender. Lots of people like to add a pinch of salt into their plant milk, and that's totally up to you. You could experiment to see if you like it or not, but if you do try it, I recommend just a pinch of salt. All right, we're gonna taste these milks. Here comes the fun part. I'm gonna start with almond. As you can see, it's almost all gone because we loved it so much. Let me just say that I don't generally like almond milks from the grocery store. I always just think of them as kind of just like lightly flavored water. There just doesn't seem much to it. And they can be pricey too, right? Not to mention, there's obviously some environmental impacts from almond milk. It smells so good. But I love almond milk at home. So good, it's creamy, it has a great flavor. The almond milk price ended up being, for 4 cups of almond milk, $3.33. So this is half of what the size is normally at the store. So if you double that, that's very, very expensive. But I mean, if I have extra almonds sitting around, I'm definitely gonna make it. It's really, really delicious. Creamy. I just love it. It's so good. So, so good. Okay, the next one we're gonna try is the cashew milk. This is normally my top. I have 2 favorite ones that I buy from the store. Cashew milk is one of them. You guys see that? It's actually looks a lot like dairy milk, oddly. Let's taste it. It has such a clean, refreshing taste, actually. This is one of my favorite plant milks to use in cooking. When I'm cooking like a dinner and it requires a milk, I like to use an unsweetened cashew milk. I just like the creaminess of it, and the flavor seems to never interfere with what I'm cooking, unlike a lot of the other milks. I do see some recipe creators saying to use soy milk in a lot of recipes. That's very odd for me because I find that soy milk does have a strong flavor, and a lot of times I can taste it in a finished dish. So definitely would not be my recommendation. But this cashew milk, amazing, so good. So the cashew milk ended up being $3 for this one. So if you doubled it to have a regular half gallon, that would be $6. It seems like a lot of the milks are over $5 these days, but I'll still make this from time to time because it's just really delicious. It's so good. Okay, the next milk we're gonna try is coconut milk. This has been sitting in the fridge since last night, and it's definitely separated some. I don't know if you can tell, but it is a little watery in appearance, and I did use quite a bit of coconut for this recipe. So the thing about the coconut milk is that it has a strong coconut flavor. And if you like this, then you might really love making coconut milk from scratch. For me, you know, maybe if I was gonna make like a fun drink and blend some strawberries and ice in it, it would be really good with the coconut flavor. Otherwise, for me, the coconut's kind of like not a good one for me, personally. I love coconut. I don't like coconut flavored drinks, so that's just me. So the price of the coconut milk was $2.17 for this container. Still pretty expensive, I think, but not as bad as some of the other ones. Next is hemp milk. I had never had hemp milk before I did this little plant milk endeavor, and I have to tell you, I was super surprised. I mean, I eat hemp hearts like any other person, sprinkle them in something or put them in overnight oats or something like that. I had never had the milk, but it is so freaking creamy and just refreshing. It definitely has a nutty flavor for sure, which I personally don't mind. I will definitely be making this again. This hemp milk would probably froth really well. I'm gonna try it at some point, but the hemp was definitely a really great, pleasant surprise for me. And the price for the hemp milk, so this cost me $4.16 to make. That is, I wanna say it's the most expensive, maybe of the whole group. The next one that we're gonna taste is the oat milk. As you can see, it's almost gone. I think this was my husband's favorite. This one wasn't my favorite. I know a lot of people really love oat milk. They love how creamy it is and stuff like that. But I just think it's kind of bland. This was one of the cheapest ones. I think it ended up being, like, I have to have gluten-free oats, so for me, this cost 84 cents to make. But if you're just buying like a generic rolled oat, it ends up being about 29 cents per container, so that would be very hard to beat. But I would just say, you know, if you really want to make oat milk at home and you want it to be pretty creamy, I would blend in about a quarter cup of raw cashews that have been soaked. That will like give it a little bit more fat and make it a little bit more creamy. It's not bad. I don't hate it. I mean, I've definitely made it before when I was trying to like budget my grocery spending, but overall it's just not a fan favorite for me. The next one we are tasting is the rice milk. This has not been touched since I put it in the fridge last night. And as you can see, it's completely separated. So if you make it, you'll want to make sure you shake it. Looks a little better. don't know if you can tell, but it actually has a similar wateriness as the coconut milk. Also seems pretty watery. Smells a little bit like cooked rice. The flavor's not bad. Like I said, it's watery. It's not super creamy. It's pretty plain. I think if you wanted a cheap milk to add in like a baked good or something, this would be really great for that. This did come in as the cheapest, well, besides the oats. This was 45 cents because it just uses long grain white rice. 45 cents for this container. That's pretty good. The next one is soy milk. This one I had never made before this test, and I was really excited to do it. I found that buying non-GMO soybeans was harder than I wanted it to be. None of my local stores actually sell that. And to buy it on Amazon, it seemed like all the packages were really big. I didn't want a really big package. I wanted a small package. Luckily, we were able to get it from a not so local Asian market. They had non-GMO soybeans, so that's how I made this stuff. As you can see, it looks pretty creamy. It didn't separate. It's more yellow than all of the others. It has a little bit of a distinct smell. I love soy milk, like container soy milk from the grocery store. I totally love it. It's my favorite. I like to buy the one that has no sweetener. It doesn't have any vanilla, just plain soy milk. I freaking love it. I don't like this as much. This has a stronger flavor. Maybe if I made it again, maybe I would use a little bit less soybeans than I've used here. I'm not really sure. I haven't tested that. I'm going to give you the recipe as how I tested it. But I mean, it still has a clean flavor. I think it's just got a little bit of an aftertaste. It's just like a little bit like beans. And somehow when they manufacture it, that's just gone. So try it for yourself, see what you think. So this full container of soy milk cost $1.50. I can actually buy a half gallon of soy milk at my local store for $2.79, which is really nice. So this wouldn't be, you know, this takes the longest to make because you have to cook it. And I probably wouldn't do it again unless I didn't have a choice. That's just me personally. I like the store one. I think it tastes really good. It's a really good price at the store. And I find soybeans expensive to buy for some reason. One milk left. Walnut milk. It was really hard for me to save some of this for the final taste test of everything because this was one of my favorites. The smell is just like lightly nutty. It is pretty creamy. I don't know if you can see how thick that is. One of my favorites. It does taste a little bit like walnuts, but man, the flavor is just so clean, so fresh. I think I have had a glass of this week. I'm not like a person who pours a glass of milk and drinks it. So I put it in my matcha tea. If I have like granola that I make, I'll pour some in my granola. But overall, I'm not like a milk guzzler, but this, wow, so, so good. So the walnut milk ended up being really cheap, actually 80 cents for this container. That's pretty fantastic, and as much as I love it, I will definitely be making this again. If there's special milk that you really like and that you make at home, let us know which one it is, what's your process. Let's get a discussion going here about these plant milks. And I think that's about it. If you want to enjoy something with your plant milk, watch this video on homemade granola. It is the best granola I've ever had. I'm not even kidding. You should try it.